Did you know that there's 4.52 million podcasts readily available right now? Out of those 4.52 million, 90% of podcasters quit before they reach 3 episodes. Of those 452,000 that are still left, another 90% quit before they reach 20 episodes. So to be in the top 1% of all podcasts globally, you need to record 21 episodes. Well, I'm incredibly grateful because we have reached that milestone and we want to continue producing great quality work for you. It's not about the episodes, it's not about the fanfare, but it's about making something that's going to be quality, that's going to be impactful for each person's life that's hearing this. Can you help me be a part of this journey by simply hitting subscribe or follow? By doing so, it continues to grow our reach so that way we can get the best quality guests for you to continue on this currency of happiness journey. Thank you. It's February 1928. Walt Disney is sitting across a table in New York from a man named Charles Mintz. Disney has come to ask for a bigger budget. His cartoon character, Oswald the Lucky Rabbit, is a genuine hit. Audiences love him. The industry has noticed. And for the first time in his career, Disney feels like he has made something that works. But Mintz tells him no. Then Mintz tells him something worse. Universal Pictures now owns the rights to Oswald, not Disney. And Mintz has already quietly signed away most of Disney's animators to work on Oswald cartoons without him. Disney has 2 options: accept a 20% pay cut and keep working on his own character under someone else's control, or walk away and lose everything he has built. Universal's executives are certain he'll take the deal. Nobody walks away from their only successful creation. Nobody gives up the thing that is finally working. But Disney stands up and he walks out of that meeting. He boards a train back to Los Angeles, and on that train ride, he starts sketching. Not because he has a plan, not because he can see what's coming, because he needs a new character, one he will own completely, one that can never be taken away from him, and the only thing he knows how to do when everything else falls apart is to start drawing. That sketch becomes Mickey Mouse. Now, to truly understand why that moment matters, you need to know what came before it. Disney's first studio, Laugh-O-Gram Films, is in Kansas City, went bankrupt in 1923. A distribution company had then promised him $11,100 for 6 cartoons, and then they never paid. He was so broke he could barely afford food and slept in his office. He then left Kansas City with 1 unfinished film, almost no money, and a one-way ticket to Hollywood. He tried acting, and that went nowhere. He started making animated shorts. He then finally created Oswald and watched him become the most popular thing he'd ever made. And then it was taken from him. Now, here is the part most people get wrong when they tell this story of Disney. They frame what happened next as resilience. Disney lost something and bounced back. That's the version that feels inspiring and fits neatly on some sort of motivational poster. But that's not what actually happened. Disney didn't lose Oswald. He actually traded him. He could have kept Oswald. Mintz gave him the option: accept the terms, take the pay cut, keep working on his own character under someone else's control. And a lot of people would have taken that deal. The character is working, the income is there, it's guaranteed. The alternative is starting over with absolutely nothing. And Disney said no, deliberately, with full knowledge of what it would eventually cost him. He walked away from his best thing because keeping it required giving up something he was not willing to give: ownership of his work. And that refusal, that specific line he drew in the meeting, is what made everything that came after possible. The question Disney faced in that meeting wasn't whether he could handle losing Oswald. The question was whether he knew what mattered more than Oswald. That is a different question entirely. Most people never get clear on what they are not willing to compromise. They may have a general sense of their values a vague awareness of what they care about. But when something they've built is on the table and someone is asking them to choose, the clarity usually disappears. The thing in front of them feels too important to lose. So they make the deal, they accept the terms, they keep the thing, and give up the principle. Disney knew exactly what he was not willing to give up. He had learned it the hard way, through the bankruptcy, through years and years of building things that other people controlled, through watching his work exist in a structure that didn't protect it. And when the moment came, the clarity was there. He didn't agonize over it. He stood up and left. That clarity, knowing the line before you get to the table, is one of the most underrated things in any person's life, in business, in leadership, and how you build anything that truly matters. What are you not willing to compromise? Not in theory, but the values you would name if someone asked you at a dinner party. The actual line in the sand, the thing that if someone asked you to give it up, would you stand up and walk out of that meeting? Most people don't know what that is until they're already in the meeting and the pressure is on. By then, it's honestly too late to think clearly. The thing that's being offered looks too good, and the thing that's being asked feels too abstract. And you make the deal because you can't see clearly enough in the moment to know what you're actually trading. Disney could see clearly, and that clarity cost him Oswald and gave him Mickey. Here's the other thing worth naming. The loss was real. I don't want to skip past that. Disney walked out of that meeting having given up the most successful creation of his life, most of his team, and his only reliable income. The train ride back to Los Angeles was not some triumphant, rejoicing thing. He sent his brother Roy a telegram saying everything was all right, which is the kind of thing you say when you're trying to convince yourself as much as you're trying to convince your brother that everything is going to be all right. But like I said, he started drawing on that train, not because he felt good, because drawing was what he did when everything fell apart. And the character that came out of that necessity, that specific pressure, nothing left to lose creativity, became the most recognized character in the history of entertainment. The loss built the thing that the success never could have. Mickey Mouse was not an immediate triumph either. Disney took the character to MGM, and the executives told him women were afraid of mice and it would never sell. But he found a way to synchronize sound to animation, something that had never been done before, and released Steamboat Willie in 1928. The audience went wild. Mickey became an immediate sensation. Then Disney decided to make the first full-length animated film, Snow White. Critics called it Disney's folly before a single frame was finished. A full-length animated movie had never been done. It took 3 years to complete. The budget was supposed to be $250,000. It ended up costing $1.5 million. Disney mortgaged his own house to finish it. Snow White became the highest grossing film of 1938. It changed cinema permanently. Then Disneyland. Every bank Disney approached said no. Critics called it foolish, too expensive, and certain to fail. He pressed on. It opened in 1955 and redefined what entertainment could be. Here's the pattern that runs through all of it. Every time Disney built something significant, he built it against a majority opinion that said it couldn't be done. The full-length animated film, the theme park, the media empire, and every time, the thing that gave him the resolve to keep going was the same thing that let him walk out of Mintz's office. A clarity about what he was building and why that was stronger than other people's certainty that it wouldn't work. He wasn't stubborn for the sake of it. He was clear. There's a difference here. Stubbornness is refusing to hear no because you can't tolerate being wrong. Whereas clarity is knowing what you're building well enough that other people's doubts doesn't have anywhere to land. Most people give up their best things not because they're weak, but because they're unclear. They don't know what they're actually building or why. So when someone offers them a version of what they have under terms that compromise the core of it, they take the deal because they can't see clearly enough to know what they're actually trading. But Disney could see. Walt Disney spent years building Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. He lost him in a meeting that lasted less than an hour. And then he got on a train and drew a mouse. The rabbit he walked away from was a hit. The mouse he drew on the train became a legend. Not because losing the rabbit made him lucky, because walking away from it on purpose, knowing what it would cost, knowing what mattered more, that decision put him in a position where the only option left was to build something he actually owned. You can't always choose what gets taken from you, but you can choose what you're willing to walk away from. And sometimes the most important decision you will make is not what to build next. It is knowing the line you will not cross to keep what you already have. Disney's line was ownership. Yours is probably something else. It might be your integrity in how you lead. It might be your presence with your family. It might be the standards you hold and how you do your work. Whatever it is, knowing it before you get to the table is the difference between making a deal that looks good and a decision that actually is good. Most people find out what they're willing to lose after they've already lost it. Disney found it out in that meeting in New York when Mintz slid the terms across the table, and Disney knew, without having to think about it, that this was the line. So here is what I want to ask you. What is a line you would not cross to keep the thing that you're currently building? And do you know it clearly enough that you would recognize it in the room? If this episode of Disney resonated with you, can you do me a favor and hit the subscribe button? It will ensure that you see future episodes that are coming down the pipeline and help us expand our reach. Thank you.